Welcome. Good morning to a special class interview for today's Intro to PT 1000 topic. Typically, we're able to hold this session with Teresa Briedwell from the MU DPT program in person in our class. However, due to her own class scheduling conflict, she's unable to visit us in person this semester. So we decided to try a virtual presentation and kind of interview, dialogue, and discussions, because it's some real key important information specifically for prospective DPT students looking here to apply at MU. So with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Teresa Briedwell. She's faculty and director of admissions here at MU DPT school. She was also a professor of mine. We still stay in contact. She usually comes visit me every year, but however, we're doing it virtually. So welcome to our class. Good to have you. How are you today?
I'm great today. Thanks for having me. I appreciate your willingness to adapt. Somebody crazy that makes the schedule over here scheduled me at the exact same time as your course. So
that's all right.
Yeah.
Hey, we will take you in any way, shape, or form we can get you, just because you're so vital to the program. How long have you been with the MU DPT program now?
Ooh, yeah, he's just wanting me to show off how old I am.
Nope, not my goal.
Yeah, I mean, I probably started doing some adjunct work back in 1995 and transitioned to full-time, a few years after that. So it's been an incredible experience. Still have the opportunity to practice physical therapy, though I haven't given up patient care completely. So I just have the best of both worlds. So I'm excited that all of you are interested in physical therapy. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're absolutely welcome to visit me in my office at any time, especially if you have questions after we go through this session today. So.
Yeah, and I put together some questions kind of on behalf of the students that we typically see, and I'm sure some questions will probably pop up. And if I can't answer it in person in class, I will probably refer them over to somebody there at the DPT program. So, well, before you share your slides and kind of get into some of the content of admissions, recommendations, core curriculum, you kind of mentioned doing some adjunct stuff back in 1995, kind of pushing you into the University of Missouri system there. What is your experience getting into physical therapy? What drew you into the profession in itself, and kind of how did you get to where you're at right now?
Yeah, I guess I have to give credit to a teacher in the past too, but it happened to be my junior high physical education teacher, because I thought she was the greatest thing in the world. And I told her I wanted to be just like her when I grew up. And she was like, "Oh, no. You have more potential. I would love to see you look at healthcare." And so physical therapy sounded a whole lot like physical education. So I decided to explore that and did some observation hours, and we'll talk about how important that is for your decision. And I loved what I saw, and I wanted to be just like them. Obviously, I'm very easily impressionable, right? And pursued it. Back at the time I went through school, physical therapy was a bachelor's degree, and so it was my path right out of high school to go to physical therapy. I was blessed to get accepted into the program, and I've had over 40 years of wonderful experience in this profession of physical therapy. Done a variety of things. I worked in acute care. At one point, I was a private practice owner as well. I've done home health activities, done some consulting work, had some opportunities to work in ergonomics with Eric and his partner as well. So I'm now in academia, still seeing outpatients, have a little bit of a niche for individuals that have had an amputation, but I love the opportunity and the privilege I have of seeing any patient. So you never know where your path is going to take you, but I'd say you definitely want to do your homework, find out what you need to do. And if this is the right fit, you will absolutely love every day of your career. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how, with getting into physical therapy, you're not just cornered into one type of treatment. You can work anything from pediatrics to what I do, industrial, all the way to academia, kind of like yourself, and everything in between. So, you can kind of become a well-rounded clinician and kind of pick and choose what you do and what you specialize in. It can also lead to opening some other doors, through many other different processes. So that's awesome. Well, with that being...
Yeah, I would also add to that you have the ability to move around. There are opportunities all across the country, and you won't be stuck in one kind of practice, but you might have to brush up on your skills, right? So if I were to jump into pediatric practice right now, I would owe it to those kids to kind of go back and learn some of my pediatric content. But
absolutely, and that can be said for just about any setting.
Exactly.
But you know just enough that you can apply it and still be successful.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, awesome. Well, I'll let you shift gears. Why don't you go ahead and
Hey,
share your slides, and we can dive into a little bit of the actual MU DPT program, and let you kind of take us through that coursework and map.
all right. So is it showing up?
Yep, it's just popped up.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the Mizzou physical therapy program. I would encourage all of you, as you think about physical therapy, you probably want to explore physical therapy in more than just at the University of Missouri, but might have a bit of a bias that I think this is an incredible program. But some of the things I say are very specific to Mizzou, and there may be other requirements for other schools. And your advisors will also work with you to think about, what you might need to consider. So Mizzou PT, I've added my office here. I would be happy to talk to any of you, have you visit me in my office. I don't think I put my email on here, but we can have, Eric can share that, Dr. Schultz can share that at some point to put you in contact with me. You can find me in Outlook. So
Yeah, I'll be sure to share your email and contact info, and some of the basic website links through all of this presentation. I'll make sure are embedded there in Canvas for us.
perfect. Okay, so let me just talk out a little bit about our vision statement for the physical therapy profession. So I'm thrilled to be a member of the American Physical Therapy Association. It's not required. I highly recommend it. But their vision for the profession of physical therapy is that we would transform society by optimizing movement to improve the human experience. Well, that sounds like a lot of really flowery language, but I think it's a challenge to you to think about. As a doctor of physical therapy, you have the opportunity to really make an impact on people's health and wellness and their well-being. We are considered the movement experts. So you absolutely, have the opportunity to improve people's lives. And so I'm going to challenge you to really think about what privilege that is. So I want to just share a moment about this particular patient. He's one of the patients that came to our pro bono clinic. And what you can't see is that he is wearing bilateral prostheses on his legs above the knee, but we now call that transfemoral. We'll talk about all that in school, right? He came to our pro bono clinic and he said, he had a power chair, he could get around. And I'm like, well, what are your goals? What do you want to be able to do? And he told us he wanted to be able to walk his daughter down the aisle at her wedding, and that was coming up. It was fall, that was coming up in May, and that's what we worked on. We practiced walking. We tried it with a walker. We tried with a cane. We tried locking arms. We were playing the music that was going to happen as he was going down the aisle, and we worked with him, made a decision about what would be the safest. And he went to Dallas in May. He walked his daughter down the aisle. It was a beautiful day for everybody. He came back and he said, thank you to us. And I said, for what? And he said, because that was the best day of my life. And my response is, no, thank you for allowing us to be a part of it, because that's what it's all about, to be a physical therapist. So here he is dancing the first dance with his daughter to My Girl. So it's an incredible story. Everyone else, look up a YouTube. If you have free time, there's a YouTube video about his story called Residual Will. This is what it's all about. It's about these patients. So
Yeah, it's a great story. I'll share that YouTube video I do every year on Canvas. And I went to high school with the daughter.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Long story short, when we're practicing all this, he kept referring to her by he called her Mel, and I'm like, yeah, and I never put it together. Finally he came back to me and he said, the OT at Rusk said that your son dated my daughter. I was like, oh yeah, that's great. I just didn't put the name together.
The short name. Yep.
Anyway. All right. Well, let's talk about, there are lots of different ways you could get into our program. Most people come in by what we call regular admission, which means you're going to complete your undergrad degree before you would begin our program. Now, the application deadline is September 30th, so you're not done with your degree when you apply, but you would be done with your degree before you start the program. And to be eligible to do that, you have to have a 3.0 GPA in your core courses. We'll look at what those are in just a minute. You also need a 3.0 GPA in your last 60 plus hours. And we look at that because we feel like sometimes the transition into college is challenging, and figuring out how to be a successful college student might take some time. So we will have what I call freshman forgiveness, and we won't go maybe back to that first semester, the first year of your program, if you're applying by regular admission. I will also say, your advisors will give you optimal advice for completing your degree, but maybe you don't jump into a lot of these really heavy science core prerequisites till you have that figured out, how to be a really successful college student. So, and again, you guys all know your strengths way better than we do. So there's another program called advanced or early admission, and these are for highly successful undergrad students who would like to maybe shorten this to a 6-year program instead of 7. So in their junior year, when they would be accumulating 90 hours by the end of that spring, if they have a 3.5 GPA and they have completed all of our core courses, or we'll have them up no more than 3 left, but we'll have them completed by the end of that spring. You also have to make sure you meet all your gen ed requirements, you get your writing intensive requirements done. So this is something you should talk to your academic advisors about. I would say, hey, I'm doing my undergrad degree in X, but I'm really interested in this early admission avenue to physical therapy. And they will make sure you get everything in place in the right order to make yourself eligible to apply. You'd have to complete 3 years of actual college coursework. So some of you guys are able to come into college with a lot of AP credit or dual credit stuff that you've done, and you may be able to finish your degree in 3 years. Well, that means advanced admissions is not the option for you. You'll apply via regular admission. This advanced admission is for people who are on the 4-year track for an undergrad degree after completing 3 years of actual on-campus residential classes. They would be eligible to apply, right? When you apply via early admission, there's no guarantee, right? You are competing for one of these spots just like everybody else. So we might get an average of 180 to 220 applications in a year. We're going to accept 60. So don't let those numbers scare you, right? Because people are applying to more than one school, and some of those people that we offer a spot to will not take a position at the University of Missouri. So I say put forward your best application, put it forward to any school that you're actually interested in, but know that there's no guarantees as you go through the admissions process. We do have, I say that, and then we do have one guaranteed admission process, and that is our SHARP Scholar Program. This is a guaranteed admission for students in their coming in high school senior year or as a freshman at Mizzou, but you have to have your application submitted by November 15th. So that deadline will be quickly approaching. You have to have been in the top 10% of your high school if your high school ranks. And we need a composite score of 30 on the ACT or the equivalent on the SAT, which is 1360. We are not using super scores when we look at our SHARP Scholar program. So you have to have one test with that score of 30 if you're interested. So submit your application. The information for that is on our website. And I think we'll go to the website. I can kind of show you where that's at in a bit. Make sure you get your application in on time, and then we will do interviews on December 8th, which I believe is reading day or stop day or whatever it is that we're calling it at this point. And we'll let you know what time we have you scheduled for that if you submit your application. So these are the core courses that I talked about. So in order to be eligible to apply to our program, you have to take all these courses, or you have to have a plan to have these completed before you would start our program. So statistics, it doesn't have to be a certain stat course, although 1200 is the one that we see most commonly. We look for a general biology, so 10, 10, 10, 20, or 1500 might be the biology you take at Mizzou. But let's say you were interested in doing biology over the summer and you decide to do it at a community college. That may very well be appropriate. My only caveat is to say you might want to check that out in terms of the equivalency for the transfer before you take it. I would hate for you to pay for a course, take a course, and then I'd have to say, oh, it doesn't meet our requirements. So happy to look at those for you if you have any questions. We require 1 4-credit hour of chemistry with a lab. Many other PT programs will require Chem 1 and Chem 2. So If you took both of those, and let's say Chem 2 was a better grade, we certainly would consider that in your core course GPA. Mizzou has physiology separate from anatomy, so those are both requirements for us. You may, if you're taking courses somewhere else, see that they do anatomy and physiology combined, and in that case, you would need 2 anatomy and physiology 1 and 2. But at Mizzou, if you just take physiology and then you take anatomy, we only require the lecture part, the 3-credit-hour part of that course. Although you're welcome to take the lecture in the lab, I think it helps you out because you'll see later we start our program with gross anatomy. So having a little bit more anatomy background is a win for you particularly. We do require physics 1 and 2. Get excited for that, right? You have to think about the sequence. So as you're planning things, you need to take physics 1 early enough to allow you to get physics 2 done in time to be eligible for our program. And then medical terminology. Now it says here 1 credit hour, but the medical terminology course taught at the university is 3 credits. That absolutely meets the requirement because other universities, and we get applicants from across the country, may only have a 1 credit hour medical terminology. That's why we only ask for 1. So if you're looking at something to take in the summer and that's offered somewhere else, again, check to make sure it would meet the requirement for us, but it would absolutely only need to be 1 credit hour. So other things you need to do is complete 40 hours of PT observation. And we ask that you look at least 2 types of setting. So a hospital is a setting, an outpatient clinic, a rehab setting, industrial, school. There's all sorts of different settings. The reason we want you to see 2 is, let's say you went to the hospital and it was like, oh, these people are sick. I don't really like that. I don't want you to turn off or run away from physical therapy based on 1 practice. There are so many different things you can do. And so you need to see what it looks like in different environments. And I'll be honest, when you're in the PT program, we're going to expose you to many, many different areas of PT practice because we have to have you ready to pass your licensure exam. So you have to know about peds, you have to know about neuro, you have to know about geriatrics. So, but where you decide to practice, that's going to be entirely up to you. And again, we talked about this before. You don't have to stick with 1 thing all along. So I did put on here that we have waived this in the last several years since COVID, but I am very optimistic that this will be the last year. The applications that are being turned in right now that we'll have to do that. I do think opportunities to do observation are opening back up. I would encourage you to look at that, not just in Columbia, but maybe in your hometowns, because there's a lot of interest in PT here. It's harder to maybe get in. I also recommend contact the physical therapy department directly and say, hey, I'm a student. I'm interested in doing some observation. I'm interested in physical therapy. If you talk to the PT department specifically, sometimes you can get in a little easier than when you go through a volunteer at the hospital and they make you do a bunch of vetting and onboarding things. So I'm going to encourage you to do this if you can do it. And again, I think the waiting will go away, but this is for you. This is not for us. This is to help you figure out, you know what, I love physical therapy and this is exactly what I want to do. So
yeah, we'll talk about job shadowing, observation hours, and different settings throughout the entire class. But Teresa's right. It's really to make sure that it's something that you want to do, spend your money, spend your time, because it is a large commitment, even just to put together the application process. So if sometimes I say in this class, my goal is not to help you understand if PT is for you, but it's also to help you understand if PT is not for you. And you can answer those questions really quickly with, 1 or 2 observation settings. You'll know pretty quick.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say as a faculty member in the PT program, if you've had some experience, it helps you sort of with some application to what we're talking about. But the other time is we'll look at the curriculum. I mean, there's some moments and there's some semesters where things can get tough. And when I can say, hey, but don't forget our why, don't forget why we're doing this. It's all about taking care of that patient. And when you've seen that, you've had that experience, I think it sort of helps us to come back to understand why are we going this crazy long journey? It's to have that privilege of being a doctor of PT. So go get it, right? Also, when you get ready to apply to our program, you're going to need 2 recommendations, and we ask for only 2 when you're reading, 250 and there's that's 500 recommendations we're reading. We ask you to pick one from a professor, and we ask you to use the supervisor employer for the other one. And I know you might have many people who'd be willing to do it, but really be intentional about who you ask to do this. You need to develop a relationship somewhere between now and the application with one of your professors. Go to their office hours, get to know them, ask questions in class, engage, not to get them to like, oh, that's a great student, but to just develop a relationship. We need to know from somebody that has been your professor what your academic success is like. So start thinking about that now and thinking about who that might be for you. We're pretty flexible with that supervisor employer. Some people have been an athlete and it ends up being their coach, and that's appropriate. This doesn't have to be a PT that you have been doing observation with. It could be your employer at McDonald's. Somebody that you work for knows what your work ethic is like and knows what your dependability and reliability. And these are important things for us to get from people who know you way better than we do. So these are important parts of the application. So think ahead, plan ahead about who's going to do that for you when it comes time to apply. We ask for an activity and awards questionnaire as well. So in many schools, you're going to submit a curriculum vitae, which is basically a resume on steroids. We put it into a question and answer format. We give you the headings. You can look ahead at what this is right now. It's available for you to look at the headings on our website. But we're going to want to know things about your employment history, your volunteer, your service experience, your organizations that you might have been a part of. Have you been involved in any research? What kind of leadership positions have you maybe had? And then again, what awards or honors? And I'm going to go back to McDonald's. I have no, conflict of interest here, but if you're Employee of the Month at McDonald's, that's important to us because that means somebody who knows you is speaking into your qualities that you bring, and that's important in our profession of physical therapy. So don't be humble when it comes to this activity and awards questionnaire. Put it out there. You don't have to have all of these headings. We want to know how you fill your plate, right? So if you are a full-time student and you're working many hours a week, we don't expect to see very much in some of these other headings. But if you're not working and you're involved in some stuff and you're able to take some leadership, this is what we want to know. Like, how are you using your time? You are considering a service profession. So thinking that you've explored service and that you have some commitment to that is kind of important. I'd also say that it's not how many things you put on your CV or your activity and awards questionnaire here. It's really about your level of commitment. So maybe you were involved and you tried the Relay for Life and it was cool, but it just didn't really get you excited. And then maybe you did working at the soup kitchen and that was okay, but that wasn't your passion. But then you started walking the dogs at, the Humane Society, and you committed to that. And you did that on an ongoing basis for a period of time, very consistently. That looks to us like a different level of commitment than when you just do something here and there. So again, we have to explore, we have to figure out what gets us excited. But then when we get excited, show us that level of commitment to the service, or maybe it's to research, right? So trainings and certifications. Some people will have first aid, CPR. Sometimes you've done personal fitness training, anything that you've done that shows us something about your level of commitment to the things that you're doing. So we want you to include that as well. We also have an opportunity for you to submit the distinct experience and attributes essay. We are trying to really increase the diversity within our classroom. And when I mention diversity, it's not about race, ethnicity, it's about experiences and perspectives and insights. We will be better healthcare providers when we hear from people who've had experiences that maybe have a different insight or perspective. So this is your chance to tell the story about not why you want to be a physical therapist, but about your experience and how that has shaped you, how you've grown as a person because of the experiences that you've had. This is the cue or that you will see. It is limited to 500 words. I would say you want to spend some time with this, right? This is an opportunity to really show us what you could bring into our classroom, and it's really an important part of our admissions process. So And again, we're happy to talk to you about it individually, but we don't really do a whole lot of coaching on the essays. We'll just give you this sort of insight about what it is that we're looking for and hope that you can develop that, right? I'm going to take you to our website. I hope this will click us right out there. If not, I already have it pulled up, but what does the curriculum look like? So this is the general MU physical therapy website. This is a great little video if you want to hear from some of our students about what it's like to be a part of this program. But the DPT curriculum lies right here. I did tell you though that, so if you want to look at some of the essays, the activity and awards questionnaire, if you went to the DPT admission and application site, you would be able to find information about, you know, what are the essential skills you have to have. Here's the prompt for the essay, the activity and awards questionnaire are all down here. So that information is certainly available to you. I want to take you to the curriculum because I want you to see what's in store for you if you were to get accepted into the MUPT program. So here are those core courses that were mentioned in your PowerPoint, and I will share that with you, Eric, I think, so you can post it if you want to also on Canvas.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and then here's our curriculum. So you'll see it's 3 years. It's summer, it's fall, it's spring, it's summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, spring. So we're going to keep you busy. You'll still have some breaks, right? We still have the traditional kind of break most of the time between each of these semesters. And there are a couple exceptions that I'll mention, but we start out in the summer. So you apply in September, we do interviews, typically late October, early November. We make our offers, we finalize our class, and then we start our program the following June. At the beginning of summer school, the traditional summer school schedule. So gross human anatomy, it is, I don't have a favorite, but it is a pretty amazing course. We have this incredible opportunity to do a dissection on a cadaver from individuals who've given us a gift of their body. And we are able to learn anatomy in a way that I just think there's no better way to really figure out anatomy. But it is a tough course. It's 7 credit hours in an 8-week semester. So we're going to hit the ground running. We're going to offer as much support as possible to make you successful with that. But it's pretty exciting. The fundamentals course is basically some orientation, introduction to the profession, and introduction to our program. We're going to have our first checkout that summer. You're going to learn how to take vital signs on one another. So we're going to kind of get you started thinking like a physical therapist. So the fall semester of your first year is very traditional lectures and lab activities. We're teaching you how to do examination procedures. Can you test the strength of your patient? Can you look at the range of motion? Do you understand the neurophysiology? We also start doing biophysical agents, some modalities. You've maybe heard about e-stim or ultrasound being done on a patient. So we start to introduce that. The spring is just more information. We now talk about gait, individuals that have a prosthesis, or we start talking about orthopedic conditions because many of our patients will have orthopedic conditions that we'll see in many of the settings in physical therapy. So we kind of introduce that. But then this is a really exciting part. In the summer of your second year, you're going to go out on your first full-time clinical experience. And this is your opportunity at this point to be in acute care or maybe in an outpatient setting to practice all the skills that we've already given you under the supervision of a physical therapist. So you're going to go out and think, what, I can't do this. And you're going to find out, an amazing amount of information, and you're able to do a lot of great care, but you still need some supervision and you need some support. That's great, right? When we bring you back in the fall, this is the last full semester of didactic coursework. And you're taking a lot of courses. Now you can see we add peds, we do more ortho, we add neuro. So this is content you haven't had before. So your first clinical experience won't put you in those settings, but now we're going to give you some more background. And we're going to continue to build on all that, of course, as we go through the rest of the curriculum. I'm going to give a shout out to differential, because not only do we have to know what we can treat, we also have to, as physical therapists, know what we can't treat. And so we also want to make sure you're doing a good job of screening. So that's a pretty busy semester, but it's really, lots of great information. When you come in the spring, you only stay with us for 8 weeks, and we do some now. We're trying to put things together in some of our case management series. You're going to learn a little bit about diagnostic imaging also, but we're going to get you prepared now for the next clinical by kind of pulling all of the information you've had together. So you've got a few courses in the spring for 8 weeks, and then we're going to send you out now on another full-time clinical experience. Now you might try peds, or maybe you tried neuro, or maybe you were in the hospital and now I'm going to do outpatient. So the amount of opportunities will increase, but the expectations are a little bit higher, right? Because you've got more knowledge and skills now. In the third year in the summer, you come back and we do some coursework here on campus. Part of the reason we have you back is I'm going to steal some of those students to be my TAs in the gross anatomy course for the first year. But they're doing some more of this case management, really putting things together in terms of the neuro population, and talking a little bit more about pain and how we manage that as physical therapists. In the fall, we're going to have you here this last fall for only 8 weeks. Again, some more of those case management type courses where we're learning new content, but we're also pulling everything we've learned in the past together. Some health policy, getting ready with professional issues to send you out. And then you're going to go out, and at the end of this, you're going to do a 9-week clinical experience. And you're going to start your spring on another clinical. So you're going to start a little early. This is one of those times when we're cutting down your break. You're going to start right after the new year and have a 10-week clinical experience before you come back and spend your last 8 weeks with us. And we get you ready for your board exams, and we give you some opportunities to explore different areas of interest. And we get you ready for graduation. So I know you're like, 3 years, whoa, that seems like a lot, but that 3 years will fly by. You guys will find all of a sudden your undergrad degrees are wrapping up. 3 years in PT school are going to go even faster. So, we want you to know what's ahead, but we want you to be excited about that. And again, at times we have to reach back in and say, hey, don't forget our why. Don't forget why we're doing it. It's all about taking care of our patients, because it looks like a lot. It is a lot, but our students are very successful. And at the end of this, they're very successful on their board exams, and they get jobs. There's opportunities for all of our graduates. So I'm going to stop that share and see if I can get back.
Yeah, that's excellent. Nice, excellent little overview of everything there and the course curriculum. It's always good to see. And you're right, those 3 years, they do fly by, and then you turn around and it's 15 years you've been out in the clinic and working in the real world, and here we are. So.
Yeah. So one of the things I always say about advanced admission, if you're interested, it's a great opportunity. But if you don't get in, it's an opportunity for us to give you feedback, and you have a whole lifetime ahead of you, and you will have a long career in physical therapy if that is what you want to do. So kind of doing the fast track to get there is not critical. Like you can have a long career, even if you do a traditional, 7 years of school. So I think there's a lot of things that we can't go back and do. We should enjoy where we're at, enjoy what we're doing in the moment, and look forward to what we have to do for a long career ahead of us. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for taking us through that. And I'll make sure to post those links to our Canvas so that students can access it and follow along in the curriculum and all the course outlines. So with that, let's kind of shift gears to traditionally when you're in person here, we'll open it up for questions, and there's usually questions along the way. So I wrote down a couple that I'll kind of ask on behalf of the students. And one of the main ones that I always get is, what can I do to help my application stand out from others? So if you're proposed that, how would you answer that for our students? And there's probably many ways you could do it, but ultimately it's probably the same answer at the end of the way too.
Obviously grades are going to be really important. And so we look at 2 GPAs. We look at that core GPA and that last 60 plus. So it's really, really important. I would say particularly be strategic about when you take those core courses. We have to look at grades, one, because we don't want to bring you into the program and you wouldn't be able to be successful. And we also know that those are very well correlated to your ability to pass the board exam. So I would be honest in my studies. I would put the best foot forward, but you don't have to be perfect. Okay. So I would say, we say a 3.0 is the minimum. Realistically, you want to be in the 3.5 to 4.0 range to give yourself a better chance as far as both of those GPAs are concerned. If that's not your strength, make sure we see your strength in that essay where you're telling us your story. Like, what is your experiences? What can you bring to the table? that will help all of us become better healthcare practitioners. So really be intentional in your efforts as you put that together. Think about with your activity and awards questionnaire, how can I highlight my service, or how can I highlight my commitment? Take some of those leadership positions. Make sure though it's really clear to us when you put that together what your leadership actually was. So you might be participated in the Relay for Life. That means you went, which is a great thing. But maybe you actually plan the event. So make sure that's evident to us in that activity and awards questionnaire, or in any capacity where you're leadership. Don't be humble about any of the honors you've received or any of the certifications that you have. These are all important things to us, right? So it shows something about your initiative and about your work ethic, and we really want to see that. So I think you try to put your best foot forward in all of those different areas. The stronger you are in each of those, the better your chance. Those are the first level of screening, and then we make a cut. So if we get 230 applications, we're going to bring in about 112, 115 people for interviews. And interviews are really, really important part of our admissions process. So we want a chance for you so we can get to know you, but for you to get to know us. So you should come to that interview thinking, I'm interviewing this program. Is this a program I want to be a part of? So I would say come prepared with a few questions, and try to be yourself. I know you're going to get anxious. I know you're going to be a little bit nervous, but don't let that interfere with your ability to kind of just have conversations with us. We're not going to drill you. We might ask you questions, but it's not because you better know the right answer. It's about questions that are going to let us know a little bit about you. So I would say it's not a bad idea to practice that. Sometimes career services on campuses will offer some of those interview settings just to kind of help you feel more comfortable there. But, I'd say you want to just put your best foot forward in every way possible if you can.
Awesome. You mentioned earlier having a part-time job, kind of showing you some, the ability to maybe juggle multiple tasks as a, responsible adult. For those students that are in a part-time job or looking for part-time jobs, is it a requirement to have it in a healthcare setting?
No,
Does it add any value?
Yeah, it doesn't really add value. What we're looking for in terms of employment, kind of what's your level of commitment to a job? Are you able to get a job, keep a job, and be considered a valuable employee? I wish everybody could get a PT tech job or, a PSR in the hospital job, but there's not enough of those for everybody. And so we're not going to discount your employment because you couldn't get that opportunity. And to be honest, we understand that you are working because you need finances. And if there's a job that could pay you well, maybe tips on a weekend are more productive for you than a job as a PT tech. So we don't require that. I mean, is that experience great? Yes. Will it influence your interview? Perhaps. But I think there are also incredible things you can bring to us from any other position outside of that. So no, it doesn't have to be in healthcare. Your service also doesn't have to be in healthcare. We want you to do the things that get you excited, right? We don't want to control your life. I know when you get in PT school, it feels like we're controlling a lot, but there are things that you get to make decisions about right now, and we want you to do what makes you happy.
Awesome. In terms of the application process and your undergrad major, is there a specific one that is helpful, or what do you recommend?
Yeah, we really don't have a preference for your undergrad degree. I would say the Bachelor of Health Science is very common in our, in the applications that we see. But if you have an interest in psychology or you have an interest in biology, we have no preference. You do have to get all those core courses completed within your undergrad degree. So I think they fit very well in the Bachelor of Health Science degree, but we aren't going to give any preference or any, special attention to somebody that has a BHS degree versus somebody that has a biology degree or biochemistry. Although when I see that you do biochemistry, I'm like, wow, you're a better person than I am because I tried to stay away from chemistry. So yeah, we don't have a preference. I know the BHS has different kind of subcategories of rehabilitation sciences or health and wellness. I think they talk about the rehabilitation sciences route a lot from your advisors. I think the health and wellness one is just as important or just as pertinent. So, explore all of those particular, options that they may have, but we can't guarantee admission. So get an undergrad degree, that it's going to give you some options should you not get into PT school. And maybe you don't get in your first attempt. You're going to work for a year. Hopefully that undergrad degree will give you some opportunities to work for a year and then reapply, if that's still your commitment. And we take many re-apps. Many people get in their second attempt and not their first. So,
Yep, I was one of those. What about a minor? Is there any benefit to having a minor? Does that
yeah, I
add
think
any
it's
extra value?
yeah, I think it speaks to your level of commitment. We see several minors in psychology. There's also certificates now. So we see certificates in multicultural studies, I believe is the name of it. So those are great. Again, don't do so much that you compromise your grades, because grades are going to be an important part of it. But psychology, the reason I bring that up 2 or 3 times is we might be physical therapists, but we are dealing with the emotional part of our patients as well. And I think kind of understanding some of that psychology background can be very helpful, but it isn't critical. You don't have to have that. We're going to talk about that in the PT program as well. We don't have all the answers to those anyway. And we need to lean on our colleagues in the health professions that can address some of those needs better than we do. But we certainly will talk about that in the program a lot.
Yeah. And with the MU application process, is it part of that larger system that sends out mass application numbers?
Yeah, so the PT-CAS, which is the physical therapy centralized application system, MUPT is not a part of that program. We are one of the very few probably that are not a part of that. We're intentional at this point because we are able to get a strong applicant pool without it. We value the interview part of the application process a great deal. And when you're part of the PT-CAS, it generates more like 400 to 500 applications per school versus the 200 to 50 that we're seeing. So we feel like we would have a hard time interviewing the right people if we were to go to the PT-CAS. So at this point, as long as we continue to have a strong applicant pool, we are not a part of that. We think our process is pretty friendly. If you start to do it and you have questions, we encourage you to reach out. Our staff is also very supportive of helping you get through that process. So you will start with the grad school. And again, that information is on the website, but we will not be part of PT-CAS. And most other schools you consider applying to will. Great question.
Yeah. Do you typically recommend students to apply to multiple schools? And if so, how many?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a
Tough
perfect
question.
yeah, it is. I would say yes. I would cast my net wide and see what my options are as far as PT programs. I love our interviews because I think that's a chance for you to see what the flavor of the MUPT program is like and to find out if that's the best fit for you. You're going to spend 3 years of your life here, doing hard coursework. So we want you to feel like it's the right place for you to be. So I would say most of our students talk about applying to 5 or maybe 6 schools, but I would have to look at what could I afford to attend. Where would I be willing to live or relocate to? So for me, the options might have been much more narrow, right? I wouldn't have considered any of the private institutions just based on financial decisions for myself. So I might have only ended up applying to maybe 2 or 3, had that been what the opportunities were when I was applying. But look at the schools, look at what the tuition is like, look at where you would have to live, look at what the curriculum is like, what kind of support is available. I hope what happens is that you apply to multiple schools, you get into all of them, and then you get to pick, like, where is the best place for me to be for the next 3 years of my life. So.
Yeah, that would be preferred for sure. And then last question here. So you mentioned shadow observations are kind of starting to become a thing, and we're getting requests. I think a lot of the PT clinics, hospitals, they're kind of opening those doors to the visitors to come in and observe and whatnot. And you mentioned trying to get at least 2 settings, so maybe outpatient, acute, skilled nursing, pediatric, something along those lines. When students start to gather those observation hours, how should they track it, and what is kind of required in the application component of it?
This is another one of those areas where MU is a little slightly different than other programs. So there may be some schools that you're considering that require you to log in and get signatures. We don't. So what I would say is, grab their business card, write on the back of it, kind of the number of hours that you are accumulating, because you're going to report that to us on the activity and awards questionnaire. And you're going to say that you did shadowing at Boone Hospital between January and March of 2023, and you accumulated, 15 hours at that site and the name of the physical therapist. Then you might put 2 or 3 bullet points about what you saw there. You might then list another site. And again, we just want a general time frame of between what period of time you were there and the total number of hours. I don't need to know that on September 26th of 2023, you were there between 11 and 11:30 a.m. I don't need that kind of detail. So again, this is a bit of an honor system because the purpose of these are for you to help you understand what PT is and make sure it's the right fit. And we just look at it as a yes, they've done it, and we appreciate that you've done it. So much more of an honor system for us than it might be for another school.
Okay, so the key there is check the requirements for each
check the requirements
school you're applying to.
Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, Teresa, that's really all the questions I have that we typically get. If I get any other ones through the semester, I might refer them to you. I'll definitely post all the information that we kind of covered, the curriculum, the website. And if students, I'll highly recommend them to reach out for an advisor or some contact. I know when I was going through the application process, I came in and sat with Jeff, who oversaw some of my kind of mentorship of, hey, this is what you need to do. This is where you're at. For my personal application, that kind of stuff. And it was really helpful. So I'll probably be recommending that to potential students in the future here. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm sure, I hope you have a wonderful day. And I will just close with, I think being a physical therapist is an absolute privilege. And I hope that you guys are all able to find something that gets you that excited as well. Stay positive, life is wonderful. Enjoy every moment of it. And if you want to visit us over here in Clark Hall, we'd love to see you. Pardon the construction that's going on right now, but we'd still love to see you. So
yeah, a lot of rebranding, and they just changed the name of the school too.
College of Health Sciences.
College of Health Sciences. Yep. Awesome. Well, Teresa, I can't thank you enough. I look forward to seeing you again soon. And I'll be sure to post everything.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Teresa.